G'day, Keithy here. Thanks for joining me again for another video. Glad to have you here. So this time around, I'm here at request to talk about this thing right in front of me here, right in front of you. Tyre pressure monitoring system. It's a little bit more information on how to use it, but the big one is when you're doing a tyre rotation. That's the most common question that I get. So I'll show you how to do that. Well, we couldn't go without checking this out.
Right, comparing the tyres now. Great Keithy here, great Keithy here.
Alright, so we're here to talk all things TPMS. So if you haven't got one or don't know what it is, TPMS stands for Tyre Pressure Monitoring System. So it's a system basically inside those wheels down there that detects the air pressure and the temperature of the tyres as you're driving along. So how can you tell that I've got a TPMS, or Tyre Pressure Monitoring System, on this car? Well, first and foremost, the valve stem is actually a different shape and colour than what you'd find on a usual wheel. Usually they're black and they're sort of like rubbery and flexible. And also on the top of the valve here, you'll see there's a little sign that shows it's got a system on it. I'll show you that exact picture right now. So that there just shows that there's a tyre pressure monitoring system. There's a little mark there inside what looks like a tyre. And that's what's used to identify that there's a tyre pressure monitoring system on this vehicle, so that if I go into a tyre shop, for example, or a mechanic to get some work done, they know that I've got a tyre pressure monitoring system on this thing, and that means they've got to be careful with whatever they do. For example, if I'm getting my tyres changed even, they can take it a little bit easier when they're putting it in the machine. So why would you have a tyre pressure monitoring system? Well, in my case, as someone who goes four-wheel driving quite often on trips and whatnot, it's really important to know what the pressure is inside the tyres when you're off-road, and that way you potentially catch a flat tyre on its way. What's that going to do? Well, that's going to save you from popping the tyre off the rim. You might even be able to have it still partly inflated by the time you put your patch into it, and then you don't have to pump it up as far. Okay, so other than awesome street cred, why would you get a TPMS for your car? If you don't know what a TPMS is all about, well, it's going to be about safety for your family. So you're driving along, your tyre goes down and you don't have a TPMS, you're not going to know what's going on. There's potential to have a crash, have an accident and drive off the road, and that's not what you want. So looking after your family by fitting a TPMS is one of the advantages. So another advantage is that you're going to be able to monitor your tyre pressure, tyre wear and tyre temperatures. So you can maintain the optimum temperature while you're driving around for your tyres and keep them in the best condition for as long as you can. I believe it's also a requirement in the United States to have a tyre pressure monitoring system on every new car. That's not the case in Australia, which is why you can buy systems like this and install them after the fact. Now this one's a MASTEN, this system that I'm running here. If you look on the other side of the tyre, you'll see the image. So the TPMS that I run in this thing is called MASTEN, that's the name of the brand. You'll see the image there. And that's just one. You can buy it from many retailers if you just Google tyre pressure monitoring system or MASTEN TPMS. And if you're worried about reliability, I've had the TPMS in this thing with the internal sensor since these tyres were brand new about 4.5, 5 years ago. And that's reliability right there. So the batteries inside are original. What do you do there when you change your tyres? You change the battery, boom, you got another 5 years or more with your tyre pressure monitoring system. So happy motor and happy life. There are two different types of system you can get for tyre pressure monitoring. So what I've got here is the internal system. You can also get an external system, which is essentially just the valve cap here, and it takes the pressure from the valve cap itself. I've heard from a few people with the valve cap one that comes on the external sensor, I should say, that they're not often as reliable for things like the temperature, but they're still good for the pressure. Whereas this one here with the internal sensor, the pressure readout is coming from inside the wheel, which is where you want it. Very accurate, and I'll show you later on as the pressure changes in this thing when the tyres heat up. So I could talk all day about all of the features and good reasons to have a tyre pressure monitoring system, but what I'm here to talk to you today about is what happens when you rotate your tyres. How do you adjust the monitor inside the car when you rotate the tyres? So the little manual that comes with this MASTEN TPMS, a little bit vague on how to do that other than rotating tyres front to back and back to front. So I had to actually contact MASTEN and get the details that I needed in order to do a cross rotation Or for that matter, if you've got a fifth tyre, a fifth spare with the TPMS installed in it, and you want to install that and put one of these other tyres up as your spare. So I'm going to show you now how to do that. Alright, so step one with your tyre pressure monitoring system is when you're going to do a rotation, decide what you want to do. Doesn't have to be anything special. You can do any kind of rotation with this system, although you'll find in the manual when you get it, it actually tells you that you just do a front to rear rotation. It tells you how to do that, how to move the tyres on the little gauge. Whereas the way that I'm going to show you now, you can put a fifth tyre onto your system. In this case, it's the spare, which is not labelled in the system at the moment. I'll show you how to do that. What you're going to need, obviously, is you're going to need your tyre on a wheel. You're going to need an inflation system, so your pump, whatever your pump may be. And obviously you're going to have your TPMS plugged in, and I'll show you what step two is. So the first step, we need to wake up the sensor in this tyre, which means we just take it for a little 10-metre walk up and back to where it is, and then we'll move to step two. Okay, so we will have woken that up by taking it for about a 10-metre walk. Step two, we need to go into the car and tell the system that we're ready to put this tyre into its position, which is going to be the spare on this. Okay, so we're in my car now, and sorry, I've just taken the, as you can hear, the compressor, just charging the tank up. I've had to take the frame rate on this video down in order for you to be able to see the actual pressure. So we've got 33 in the fronts at the moment and 40 in the rears. Now the tyre that we want to adjust is the spare, which you can't see there at the moment. So what we'll need to do, we've got a negative, minus, we have set, and we have plus on the gauge up the top here. We want to hold down the plus. Okay, so it's going to flash on the tyre that it's got selected at the moment, which is the first tyre. You can use the minus or the plus to adjust where you go. So we want to go down to that spare tyre there. So across, across, across. So what you're seeing here is the codes of the tyre pressure monitors inside the actual wheels that are on the car. And now that one is the spare, and you can see that there's all negatives there, which means it's not calibrated. So there's no tyre actually being monitored on the spare. So we're going to go out now for stage 3, and we're going to make it read this. Okay, so you only have a limited time before it shuts itself off there when it's in calibration mode. And I brought it around here so that you can hear what happens when it does actually locate the tyre on the system. So now we have to pump the tyre up. Doesn't matter what pressure it's got about 35 in it at the moment. Just put a couple of pounds in and that will recognise movement in the tyre. So you will hear it beep when it recognises this tyre as the new spare. So you can hear it beep. That's all you need to do. Okay, so here we are again. You can see that is the spare tyre there, which has been coded. That's the code for the spare tyre after we just inflated it with a little bit of air. Then you just got to hold the set button. I should apologise. Just hold it down until it beeps, and then it's set in position. Boom. So now we have got, if you're pressing the negative button, you can see your spare tyre pressure right there, which is 35 pounds, and the temperature is 24 degrees in that tyre at the moment. Obviously these ones here, cars haven't moved for some time, so they're not going to change just yet. So just to access your spare tyre, which I've put in there, or whatever tyre you want, boom. You press the negative arrow and you can move between your spare and your other 4 tyres. Alright, so there you go. So that will work for any rotation you're going to do. It'll also work if you want to add a new tyre. So in this case, you just watched me add the spare to the system up there. There wasn't anything written up there before, and we just wrote this one in and we've got it on the system. So the sensors that I'm running are the TP16, that's the internal sensors. So they're actually not an external one, where usually the external ones run essentially what is like a valve tip type sensor. The internal one is an actual internal sensor, TP16, as TP13 is the one that's the external one. And from my experience with it, the internal ones are better at registering the temperature, although the external ones are good for just really registering the pressure that's running in your tyre. If you have any troubles while you're trying to inflate them to set positions for the tyres, just double check that it hasn't shut itself down. After about a minute it turns itself back to normal mode. And same here, make sure that tyre is actually awake, so you might have to just take the tyre for a little roll backwards and forwards again to get to where you are. But otherwise, that's how you do a tyre rotation with the MASTEN system. The system that I've got, obviously I've said, is the TP16, which is the internal tyre sensors. I hope you have a good time. I hope I've helped somebody. I've had a few questions about this before, and we'll see you next time. And cut. Good work.